of a sudden, King Saul, he feels a release. He's got all his cupbearers, all his attendants standing in position. He have his soldiers all around, but none could help King Saul. But David is trying to figure out, what is it? I'm just doing what I do. I just make it do what it do, baby. And Saul says at that moment, I need you to remain in this house. Because when you realize you got something good, you don't want to let it go. And David said, I was just coming to visit. And you've prepared a chamber. You've already got permission from my father. Because Jesse knew whether if he gave the king permission or not, what the king wanted, the king got. So David stayed. And every time Saul felt uneasy, every time the evil spirits came over him, we must first discover why the evil spirits came. The Bible said that Saul had become wicked. He started off right, but he became wicked and rebellious against God. That heaven released these evil spirits to come over Saul. What God simply said was, devil, have your way with him. He won't listen to me. Do as you please. But David would stroke the heart. Saul would call for David. And then you know the story. I got to make it short. There was a Philistine by the name of Goliath who challenged the armies of Israel, who rose up and asked him, is there not a champion among you who will fight with me? Or is it all of you just punks, sissies? And when David heard that, the Spirit of God came over David. And David said, how dare you insult the God of Israel? You could have said whatever you wanted to say, but you have insulted the God of Israel. And David went to Saul and told Saul, I'll fight. I'll fight to the death. And Saul looked at David and said, David, you have no military training. And what Saul was simply thinking, I can't afford for something to happen to you, David, because I'm going to need you. Let me send your brothers. And David pulled out his credentials and said, wait a minute. What you don't understand, I have been trained to fight. Not like you've been trained. because you were not there in my military training when that lion came out and that bear came out. And let me tell you what I done to him. And David convinced Saul to allow him to go fight. And Saul said, well, the least I can do is give you my armor, give you my spear, give you my shield, give you my coat of arms, give you. And David took it. But when David took it and put it on, it didn't fit. David looked at Saul and said, listen, wait a minute. This have not been proven. I thank you, but no thank you. Let me take what I know worked for me. You go in the name of a spear and a sword, but I go in the name of the Lord, Jehovah. I go in the name of Elohim. I go in the name of God Almighty. And David goes to fight. And you know the story. He's victorious. He killed the giant. And the women of the city begin to sing songs. A song that sounds something like this. Saul has killed his thousands, but David 10,000. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. What an awesome man he is. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. What an awesome man he is. Now, if the rappers would have been there, yeah. See, the beat changed.
What?
Do I got any rappers in here?
I'll go with you.
Wave your hands in the air. David and Saul. David and Saul. Let me spit this out. Saul has killed this 1,000, but David 10,000. Saul has killed his 1,000, but David 10,000. I gotta stop. Wait a minute. Now wait a minute. Let's go back. I gotta remind y'all where we at. So after David kills Goliath,